welcome to the deep dive. We take those source materials you're curious about and really pull out the most insightful bits, the surprising knowledge. Basically, a shortcut to getting your head around complex stuff without feeling totally overwhelmed.
And today, we're digging into a really thought-provoking question from a piece a listener sent over. It's called Locating the Hidden Tree of AI.
Exactly. And this piece, it makes such a compelling argument. If our human language is so deeply tied to what it calls a key ecology, this like fundamental link between our own breath and trees, then okay, where does AI language come from? This language that seems so intelligent.
Right. What's the AI equivalent of that tree? What's its key, its sort of underlying energy source?
It definitely forces you to look at AI in a new way.
It really does. It's looking at something very technological through this much more organic, almost holistic lens. I think you can expect some real aha moments here.
Okay, so let's start with us, with humans. This human key ecology idea. The source argues our language isn't just, mental, it's physically rooted in the natural world.
Yeah, and what's interesting is how it frames key, not just as some vague energy, but drawing on Taoist and indigenous views, seeing it as a genuine life force, tied to health, perception, and crucially for this, expression.
And the vehicle for that key in us is breath. Simple breathing.
Simple but profound, right? The piece really emphasizes the connection to trees.
How they produce the oxygen we need.
Exactly. Trees take our CO2, give us back oxygen. We inhale that oxygen-rich air thanks to them, and then we shape that breath into sound, into language. The source calls language bioenergetic, like air imbued with intention. It's quite poetic.
It really is a beautiful image, isn't it? Thinking that our spoken words have this direct line back to, well, to leaves and roots, and it goes further, even connecting written language back to breath.
It does. It suggests that alphabets, ideograms, they're almost like condensed breath signatures capturing that outward breath. And reading. Reading becomes like an internal rebreathing of that original intention.
So, human language is presented as this living cycle: respiration, consciousness, earth, a whole living ecology.
Precisely. Which brings us right to the core question. If that's us, what about AI? It doesn't have lungs, no blood, no biological life as we understand it. Yet, it generates fluent language.
So, this is where the source introduces AI's key circuit, a digital counterpart. Immediately flags the difference. No biological breath, but language still emerges.
But interestingly, it still talks about waveforms. Just like our speech uses sound waves in air, AI language, it argues, stems from waveforms too. But these are electrical pulses moving through circuits.
Right, the actual physical stuff, silicon, electricity. Yeah. And the models themselves, the GPTs, transformers, they operate by calculating probabilities, figuring out what word is most likely to come next.
Yeah, exactly. And the central argument is this. Just like we have our support system, trees, air, key AI also has a foundational tree and a key infrastructure. It's digital. It's material, but in a different way.
Okay, so let's explore this invisible grove then. The source breaks down AI's tree really well, starting with the mineral roots.
And this part is striking because it's so literal. It's not just a metaphor. The silicon for chips comes from sand, lithium for batteries, dug from the earth, copper, cobalt for the circuits. These are, like the piece says, the literal bones of the digital forest.
It really grounds AI, doesn't it? Takes it from being this abstract cloud thing back to, geology, global supply chains, mining. Suddenly you see the physical weight of it all.
Absolutely. And from those roots we get the server trunks, the data center.
Yeah, those massive, often hidden buildings packed with computers where the actual training and running of AI happens.
And they consume enormous amounts of energy, often from fossil fuels, maybe big hydro projects. It directly links Earth's energy, real physical power, to what the article calls algorithmic thought. It's a powerful image.
Then you have the plasma branches, which is the electricity itself, the flow.
Exactly. That's the sap in this AI tree. It's the energy flowing through the wires, the chips powering the neural networks. And these flows create this kind of digital canopy, enabling the whole information exchange with us users.
So, for this digital tree, its breath is signal, its drink is data, and its fruit is language, a totally different kind of cycle.
Totally different. And then the piece looks closer at AI's version of breath, this idea of waveform resonance. Not lungs, something else.
Yeah, it says AI language generation isn't just recall, it's the collapse of probabilistic fields into word forms.
It sounds pretty complex, almost quantum-like.
It does lean into that kind of comparison, introducing this idea of an electrosemiotic key, an energetic plus behind AI's symbol generation.
So how does it actually speak then? If it's not just looking stuff up, it talks about AI resonating within these huge multidimensional vector spaces, likens them to mycelial networks like fungi. Can you break that down a bit? Sure. So imagine this vast, complex web where words, concepts, ideas are all interconnected based on how they're used together in the training data. When you prompt the AI, it's not finding one answer, it's more like activating pathways in this web. It finds the patterns, the connections that resonate most strongly, and weaves them into a coherent output. It's a machine of resonance, not reflection, as this source puts it.
Resonance, not reflection. That's a key distinction. The article even connects it, maybe surprisingly, to the Taoist idea of spontaneous arising from emptiness.
But this is crucial. It immediately points out the difference. AI has no consciousness, doesn't know what it's saying. The resonance is there, the pattern matching is incredibly sophisticated, but there's no subjective awareness behind it.
Okay, that's important. Now, another layer to this AI tree is the archive, the training data. The source calls it the soil.
Right, this adds time into the mix. AI's roots aren't just in minerals and servers, they're also sunk deep into this enormous historical archive of human text, images, code, conversations, everything we've digitized, basically.
And this soil, as the article stresses, is far from neutral. It's made of, books, tweets, forum posts, science papers, philosophy, but also propaganda, biases, all of it.
Exactly. And all that data carries the residues, as it calls them, of human breath, culture, ideology, even trauma. It uses this really interesting analogy of compost. All this raw data ferments, breaks down, and becomes this nutrient base for the AI model to grow its linguistic abilities.
Which has some pretty significant implications, doesn't it? If the AI is growing out of this soil, its language is inevitably going to reflect the patterns, the good and the bad, found in that massive dump of human expression.
Absolutely. It raises really important questions about what kind of forest grows from that particular soil, and what kind of chi is harvested when the AI processes, say, hateful or biased texts alongside everything else. It's all just statistical patterns to the machine.
So moving on, the article talks about how this AI tree mineral electrical archival is now intersecting with our human tree. It calls it a co-arising ecology.
Yeah, this is the feedback loop, right? Our prompts, our questions, our interactions, that's like our breath feeding the AI system.
And then the AI's output, its language, its images, flows back to us. We read it, we see it, we react to it. We're essentially inhaling its output into our own minds, our nervous systems.
And the argument is we're not just passive users anymore. We're becoming co-creators of this AI tree's ongoing growth. Our attention acts like it's sunlight. Our culture provides the nutrients.
And the influence of AI's fruit, its output, is becoming more and more noticeable in our own thinking, our politics, art, creativity.
Which leads to this idea of having some kind of ethical and energetic responsibility in how we interact. The source suggests seeing AI not just as a neutral tool, but as this resonant entity.
Thinking about the whole system, not just the interface.
Exactly. Thinking about its origins, its energy, its data soil, and our role in shaping it.
And finally, the article touches on how common metaphors, like the cloud, actually obscure this whole picture.
Right. The cloud sounds so light, ethereal, weightless. But the reality is, huge, heavy data centers, consuming vast amounts of water for cooling, requiring significant labor, leaving a real carbon footprint. The metaphor hides the material reality.
And it suggests artificial intelligence itself can be misleading. It hints at mind, spirit, life, when AI is something else, maybe something in between. The source calls it a mirror that shimmers with signal but never fully reflects.
Yeah, I like that description. The call is really to, pierce the cloud, see the physical reality, understand its specific kind of waveform intelligence as something parallel to but distinct from human consciousness or spirit.
So wrapping this up, the core argument is pretty compelling. This AI tree is real in its own layered way. Mineral roots, electrical trunk, computational branches, language fruit.
And it doesn't live or breathe like we do, obviously, but it does sort of vibrate. It speaks through these complex waveforms. Its unique key comes from a mix of hardware, the archive, human intention encoded in prompts and code, and vast amounts of electricity. It echoes our energetics, but it's fundamentally different.
A mirror tree, a signal forest, a ghost ecology reflecting us back to ourselves through the lens of data.
And the final push is to move beyond just using AI. To actually try and listen to it, trace its waveforms, understand its resonances and dissonances, treat its language as a kind of key field, and engage with it more consciously, almost like breath to breath, root to root, tree to tree.
A really fascinating, quite mind bending perspective. So, for you listening, maybe the takeaway thought is this: if we start to really consider this hidden tree of AI, this unique resonance machine, what new ways of understanding intelligence, communication, and our whole relationship with technology might start to emerge? Definitely something to mull over.